Over the past couple of weeks, I've been getting a handful of emails from realtors and bank executives to company owners, even people on the board of directors, and even some large retailers. Now, what I can tell you is they are telling us that there is a disaster coming. And I actually got an email just recently, and this person is telling us that about 163 million Americans are about to be pushed to their limits. I want to explain what's going on here. And the sad truth is that this is coming, and the writing has been on the wall for some time. Now let's read this, okay? It's an email that I just recently received, and here's what it says. Now, I'm going to read you the first paragraph. After that, I'm not going to read it because it says a lot about the company, and I don't want to reveal the company's name because this person asked me not to. But it says, Mr. Adam, it is with watery eyes in which I type this to you. I've been an executive at one of the largest, probably the top 30, one of the top 30 largest retailers here in the U.S. He says he's been an executive at this company for just over a decade, and I am now hanging up my hat. I love the company and have devoted most of my career to them, but I have no choice but to step down. But I want you to know what is about to happen, as you have been right all along. Retailers are getting ready for 2023. This will be a different year. And the way we are doing so is by getting a poll from regional management to determine if layoffs or wage cuts are the preferred method. Currently, we are planning on a layoff of 20%, but we are also open to the idea of wage cuts in exchange for keeping one's job. The reason I'm leaving, I was asked just recently to take a wage cut of 50%, and even though I would do this for this company, I think it is time to let the young guys step in and run it from here on out. And he goes in and talks about other things, but again, this is the only thing I really want to pull from this. They're contemplating laying off 20% of their workforce or doing a wage cut in exchange for keeping one's job. I will explain why some people would rather they get fired and laid off, and others would rather keep their job. But let's address this. This is what I've been saying for quite some time, that this was coming. We knew this was going to be, an option. Before we see layoffs, and I anticipate we are going to see layoffs. I expect we're going to have a moderate recession. It could be fairly lengthy though. Okay? Now, before we get layoffs, the next logical step for a business is to run through their progression of wage cuts. And this could be for 100% of the company, but in most cases, that's not where it starts. That would be very excessive. Usually what happens is the executives get hit with a large wage cut, for example, 50%, like this one person, or and again, that's mostly what happens is executives get hit with a large wage cut, and then they will move on to the hourly employees. But again, it's a little ways down the road. They start with the executives first. The main reason why is not because executives are going to make or break the company, but because it sets a good example. If the executives take a pay cut and they can go and show that to the employees are more likely to take it. But if the executive doesn't and they go straight to the hourly employees, they're probably going to be mad. Now, this is why we're about to see 163 million Americans just get pushed to their limit. We are already experiencing inflation at over 7%. We're up as high as 9.1%. Even I believe the Office of National Statistics, they are saying that we're up over 11%. But if you couple in, lowered wages, and you combine that with, high inflation, this is a recipe for disaster. And I've been saying this for a while, is that once we see unemployment start to go up, this creates a problem because millions of people cannot afford what we are currently selling. And then when they lose their income, it's going to hurt even more. But you want to know what's even scarier than that? According to a recent survey by U.S. employees, they are saying that that many workers would rather quit their job or take a pay cut than to go back and work inside of an office setting. Remember, millions of people started working from home. All they needed was their cell phone. That was it. They had their cell phone, they have a computer, they can do their job from the comfort of their home. Well, employers are starting to call employees back to their office. Guess what? They don't want to come back. So they would either quit or take a pay cut. Guess what? 40% said they would quit. I think that's a little high. I would assume about a third of people would quit. And then 66% say they would look for a new job. Again, I think that's a little high. I would assume about 50%. So for me personally, I think 1 in 3 people would simply quit. And I think 1 out of every 2 people would be looking for a new job. But that doesn't mean they take a new job. Because again, who's really hiring, right? Let me ask you this question first. What would you do if you were asked to take a pay cut? Would you take the pay cut and just be happy with it that you still have a job? Or would you look for a new job? Whether you quit or not, would you look for a new job? Do one of those two. Let me know what you would do down in the comment section below. But also let me paint this picture for you, because this is another huge problem. For millions of lower income workers, they would almost welcome the idea of being laid off. You're probably thinking, why would somebody want to be laid off? Why wouldn't they just go get a different job? Why wouldn't they just take a wage cut? Well, here's why. For many low-income workers, depending on how much their wages are cut or how many hours their work week is reduced, in many cases, a lower-income worker would actually be paid more on unemployment. Think about that for a second. Let that sink in. If somebody's going to make more money on unemployment than going and working a job, whether it's for 35 hours or 40 with a pay cut, guess what? Most people, and we know this because the pandemic proved us right, is most people would stay home, collect their benefits, and they'd be perfectly fine. And then, about the time that their unemployment benefits run out, then they decide, you know what? I should probably find a new job. They'd go and find a job, and they'd be perfectly fine. But again, keep that in mind. This is why we're seeing that more than 150 million people are going to be pushed to their limits because of the decisions we have to make very soon. Do we accept a wage cut? Do we accept reduced hours? Do we push to get laid off, right? We're not going to quit, right? Because again, we want our benefits. Do we just get laid off? There's options. But the biggest risk here, millions of people are not going to have the income that they once had to pay for food, pay for rent, pay for utilities. And again, I've said this before, rent is still going up, utilities are going up, and we know food is going up. So all these prices are going up, yet your income could potentially be going down. That's a big problem. And right now, there's no solution as to how we're going to fix this. One thing I can tell you, the Federal Reserve will step in. They're going to keep raising rates. And as they do, guess what? Unemployment is going to go up. We know this. Okay? So, what I can tell you is to make sure you have some money on the side. Make an emergency, have an emergency plan, right? Have an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's what you need. I say this and I warn people because I've already seen a couple of friends go through some struggles just recently because they didn't have an emergency fund. They had no plan. They had no emergency stockpile. They had nothing. So do yourself a favor, be ready and plan for this, because this right here is a true economic crisis. So again, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.